Yo, what's up everybody, it's your boy Alvius Void coming back with another video up on the channel, which is part 3 to what if Tanjiro was born with the Demon Slayer mark. So yeah, with the last episode that we did of this, we just went over everything that happened in the anime, with Tanjiro going with Rengoku to the Mugen Train arc, where Tanjiro was able to one-shot Enmu, as well as fight Akaza, and also defeat him as well. With him as well going to probably hell with his wife, or his late wife, and his master. The next arc, the entertainment arc, the sound Hashira was able to take Tanjiro, who was then pronounced the new son Hashira, as well as taking him, as well as Inosuke and Zenitsu, who had been training as much as they could to try catch up with Tanjiro, but as much as we know, they won't be able to. With them as well going over to the entertainment district, they'd be able to battle. Tanjiro was able to battle against Daki and one-shotter, and with Gutaro as well emerging from her as well, one-shotting him, with them both going to hell together. We now begin the next arc to Demon Slayer, which will be going into the spoilers into the manga, with Tanjiro, Zenitsu, Inosuke, as well as Tengen, as well as his 3 wives, going back to the Master's place, or the Demon Slayer headquarters. They'd all get to know about their next mission. With Tanjiro, who doesn't need to really go to the Swordsmith village, there would be someone who does, that being Zenitsu. Zenitsu in this time around for the Swordsmith arc village to, kind of come around with Tanjiro going there. Tanjiro will go with Zenitsu to help in the construction of his sword, as well as, just hang out with him, as he doesn't really need to train, and it would be a good experience for Hashira to go down to the Swordsmith village, just to, look around and get himself orientated with the other swordsmiths there. With Tanjiro and Zenitsu going down to the Swordsmith village, Inosuke would stay behind, deciding that he needs to train even more, as Zenitsu has, at this moment, has far outskilled him in his breathing techniques, as well as, his overall skill. With Tanjiro and Zenitsu arriving in the Swordsmith village, they'd look around and honestly see some amazing things, that being all the swordsmiths wearing masks to help hide their identities. Tanjiro would tell Zenitsu to go find the swordsmith that his sword had been made by, to go get one repaired or a new one completely. Tanjiro, walking around, would encounter Mitsuri, the love Hashira. Meeting her, they would just talk for a bit, and she would tell Tanjiro about a secret sword that was used by the first breathing user, which is a legendary sword. Tanjiro, who still has his sword from the first time, would think that might be a cool thing to have. Tanjiro would say goodbye to her and go towards the hot springs, in which he would meet Genya. Genya, as well, in this time around, would have had his arm broken by Tanjiro, and they would have gone to talking to each other, with Genma not really wanting to talk back, as Tanjiro did break his wrist. With Tanjiro leaving, he'd be walking around the Swordsmith village, in which he would encounter Michiro, as he was trying to beat up one of the Swordsmith village's children, Kotetsu, I think she said his name. Tanjiro would immediately grab the Mist Hashira's arm, telling him to get off the kid. The Mist Hashira, Michiro, would look over to Tanjiro and recognize him as one of the new Hashira, the son Hashira. He'd immediately let go, saying that he does have a bit of respect for Tanjiro, as he became a Hashira so fast in his training, being an actual demon slayer in the actual corpse. And seeing as he kind of did have respect for, not really respect, but he kind of listened to people who were at the same level as him, like the other Hashira. It'd be in this way around, he would probably listen to Tanjiro. Tanjiro would say why he's trying to beat up the child, in which he would tell him that he's not giving him the, I think it was the key, or he wasn't giving him something to be able to go and fight against the Yorichi doll. With Michiro actually finding the key in one of the pockets of the kids, he'd take the key and wouldn't really listen to the rest of them and just start to walk off, in which he would encounter the Yorichi Zero Shiki. Tanjiro would watch Michiro as he uses a whole bunch of breathing techniques on the doll, and is starting to break down on it, with the kid, that being Kotetsu starting to cry as he doesn't want the doll to be broken. Tanjiro would immediately rush over there, grabbing Michiro by the wrist before he can swing down on the doll and break it, not allowing him to break the doll any more than he already has. Michiro would try to fight back, trying to punch Tanjiro in the face, but Tanjiro would just catch his fist in his palm, saying that won't work on him. He would immediately push him down to the ground, saying that not to damage other people's property and not to be, just a bad person in general. It doesn't matter if he's a Hashira or not. He needs to protect people and be caring to others. Michiro, he would kind of have a faint memory of his brother yelling at him before, but wouldn't dig into it anymore, deciding to leave once more. Tanjiro wouldn't fight the doll and wouldn't actually get the sword in this scenario, as the doll didn't break, so he would just have his original black blade. With Kotetsu going and fixing the Yorichi Zirashiki so that Tanjiro can train on it later. With Tanjiro again starting to train on it, it wouldn't be much of a battle towards him, as Tanjiro was able to parry a lot of the shots or a lot of the sword strikes that the machine is throwing at him. After a few hours of kind of training, I guess, with the doll, but it wouldn't be much training, as Tanjiro is able to easily predict and see all the moves of the doll, as he does know the Breath of the Sun and does know all the exact moves that this doll will be performing, and with it performing it even slower than what he does, it wouldn't be much of a training for him at all. With an attack now happening, they'd realize that Hantengu, one of the upper moons, upper moon 4? Yeah, upper moon 4, and he would begin to attack and devour all the other residents of the Swordsmith village. Tanjiro wouldn't be having this and would make himself present known to the perpetrator in the village, not realizing that there are two upper ranks in the village. Tanjiro, as well as Zenitsu, Nezuko, Genya, and Mitsuri would all come around this demon, as there was a loud crash of the massive thunder that had just stricken the house on where Hantengu is. With the nighttime as well coming around, the demon would be able to go out and outside and do all this, as Nezuko is also outside. A battle would begin, and Hantengu would be having a very hard time with this, as Tanjiro is able to keep up with the speed of Hantengu, as well as, completely cut down on him. Tanjiro wouldn't be having any of this, as he didn't want anyone else to die and doesn't want anyone to get as hurt as they already are, and would decide that he needs to use the 7th form Beneficence Radius, in which, while in the air, he would spiral into the air and would deliver a powerful strike, a very wide strike at that, at Hantengu, and would be able to split him exactly in half, slicing him right by his abdomen. With Hantengu immediately trying to regenerate, he couldn't do it as much as he could, as Tanjiro's black blade had turned bright red. Tanjiro's mark on his forehead would start to grow even more than it was before, taking a much more wild and flame-like pattern on his face, as well as having a mark appear on the bottom side of his right jaw, coming up towards his mouth. Tanjiro's entire face and his aura around him is still and calm. His face shows no emotion, and Hantengu is getting even more scared than he usually is. Hantengu would try to regenerate as much as he could, but he couldn't do as much as he could before, as I said. Tanjiro wouldn't let any of this happen, and with Hantengu trying to use his demon blood on everyone else, Tanjiro would perform the 10th form Fire Wheel, in which he would leap into the air and would leap behind Hantengu, and would spin in the air downwards, releasing a massive sword attack in a circular motion. With that being said, Hantengu's head would roll right off of his head, being in his final form, that is, as they did kind of join up. With the little Hantengu running away, Tanjiro would be able to, using his transparent world, to kind of see all this happening, and would be able to track down the little Hantengu and cut him up into little pieces, killing him once and for all with the new upper rank 4, now deceased. Muzan would feel the death of the upper moon. With Nezuko and the others, as they didn't really do much in the entire time, they'd be going around the area to take out any other demons that are around the area, like the wandering demons that kind of spawned in the area. With Nezuko as well during this time, she'd be doing a lot of fighting and would be fighting a few stronger demons, or, you know, the kind of demons that would allow her to kind of fight to her extreme as much as he kind of can. With this being said, as the night is coming up to daylight, Nezuko would be able to conquer the sun by this time, as she, you know, did in the original. With Muichiro in this time as well, he'd be facing off against Gyuko, the upper rank 5, and would be in the exact same scenario than he was in the original, and be able to take care of the upper rank 5 by himself, as well as gaining a few of his memories back. With Tanjiro in this kind of being the exact same reason that he still remembers his brother, he would think about Tanjiro as, you know, he kind of was still nice to him. With that being said, Muzan would also prepare to hunt Nezuko, as he had also gotten the information from his cells that Nezuko was able to conquer the sun and would have taken care of it, of his family, or the fake family that he had before, transforming out of his little child state and becoming a full-grown man and wiping out that little family. With the next arc being the Hashira meeting, a Hashira meeting would be conducted with Kaguya asking all the Hashiras to come back to the mansion for a meeting. With Tanjiro being there as well, they'd be talking about a lot of the other stuff that's happening, like the Demon Slayer marks. With this timing as well, Muichiro would have awakened his Demon Slayer mark, but Mitsuri wasn't able to awaken her mark, for obvious reasons, as she wasn't fighting as much as he could. With the Hashira meeting being conducted, they'd be talking about the Demon Slayer mark, and would be asking a lot of questions and finding out a lot of information about the long time ago with the first breath user, the Breath of the Sun. Everyone would look at Tanjiro and see that the Demon Slayer mark on Tanjiro's forehead. They'd ask when he got it. Tanjiro would explain that he was born with it. From the very first time he opened his eyes, he was able to peer into the transparent world, and when his first time he picked up a sword and went into a fight, his blade had turned bright red. Much like, you know, the sun in this scenario. With them also asking a whole bunch of questions and not really having the same type of reaction that they did in the original. They'd be asking Muichiro how he awakened it, and he would explain that his heart rate was really high, and his body temperature was also really high as well. They'd be thinking that this could be a way for non-people that weren't born with the mark to awaken the mark, to help them in their training for later on, and defeat Muzan. They'd also start to talk about a Hashira training, in which all the other Demon Slayers would be brought back to the mansion to begin training, as they want to make a large invasion on Muzan and to wipe out the demons once and for all, as they have a lot of strong people, that being Tanjiro. With that being said, the Hashira training would begin, and all the other combatants would start to train, going in their individual training off with their individual Hashiras. With Tanjiro being a Hashira and not really having to train as much as he did in the original, being super duper strong at this point, and nobody can really contest with him at this point. He'd be having his own people train under him, in which he would train people to use their breathing styles to a much more efficient way, and that training with him would be able to boost the Demon Slayer skill level by, probably tenfold at this point. Tanjiro would also stop his little training and would go find Gyu, as he wants to encourage him to do his training and to eat some food with him, or have a food competition with him to help get his mood up. Tanjiro, after encouraging him, would tell him to help train the others, and would do so. Training as usual, Tanjiro wouldn't go through all the training with all the Hashira, as there is nothing really to learn from them in general. Back with Nakame, she's actually spying on the camp at this point, using her demon blood art to send in different eyeballs to kind of scope around the area. Gyu and Saname would be fighting against each other, and Saname would discover the spy, finding an eyeball in the ground and crushing it immediately. With the day ending and night coming around, with Saname as well finding the eyeball, he'd be thinking about what this really is and what this means. Back with Kaguya, he's extremely ill, and in his bed with his wife tending to him and his 2 kids playing outside. Muzan would enter the area and immediately come to greet Kaguya, seeing how he looks like he's on death's door and how repulsing it is. Kaguya, who has a smile on his face, much like Buddha, would tell Muzan that, it's alright, and would subsequently blow himself up, making a massive explosion around the area, with the Demon Slayers who are kind of ready for this, as they kind of were in the original. The next arc would now begin, the Infinity Castle arc, with the explosion happening. Muzan's body would be, falling apart and burning and trying to regenerate as much as he can, but inside the explosion was the demon blood art, which is a whole bunch of spikes, and would spike into his body, making it even harder for him to regenerate. Tamiya would appear and would inject Muzan with the demon turning into human drug that they had prepared with Shinobu beforehand, getting ready to turn back all the other people back into, all the demons back into humans if they possibly could, that being mainly Nezuko. With Muzan seeing that there is this is going to be a very hard battle, well, not very hard, but very annoying battle, he'd get ready to attack, but before he could, the Stone Hashira would come, swinging his massive kind of hatchet and ball, would throw it right into Muzan, taking his head right off, but as we know, Muzan can regenerate his head, unlike a lot of the other demons around, as the only thing that can really kill Muzan is a red blade and the sun in general. With that being said, Muzan wouldn't allow any of this more to happen, and would get Nakame to use the Infinity Castle blood art around him, trapping everyone down into the Infinity Castle. There would be a massive difference in numbers at this point, as Tanjiro, who is also there, would frighten Muzan. Muzan would immediately try to run away and try to get an area where he can recuperate and regenerate, or get this poison or whatever Tamiya had injected into him. As Tanjiro falls into the Infinity Castle, he'd be greeted with Gyu, and with the income of a ton of demons, Tanjiro would use the breathing style Breath of the Sun, and would use Fire Wheel to completely cut down and mow down all the demons, immediately killing them all before they could do really anything at all. With all the other Hashira, that being the Snake Hashira and Stone Hashira, as well as the Mist Hashira, they're all kind of together, as well as the Zenitsu and Inosuke, who are running around, as Zenitsu has his own goal in mind, to face off against his once brother, now demon. Around the area, Shinobu would also be greeted with her fight with Doma, and would get ready to do that. Everything would happen in the original with Doma versus Shinobu fight, as Shinobu is trying her hardest to face off against Doma, but it isn't, she can't really do anything, and instead would allow herself to be devoured by Doma. With Zenitsu versus Kaigaku, the fight would go similar to what it is in the original, with Zenitsu, who is probably a lot stronger than he was in the original, being able to face off more evenly with his once brother, now demon, and would fight off against his brother using his his breathing style to face off against his brother's, Kaigaku's demon blood art. With that being said, Zenitsu would be able to decapitate using his new form that he had created for the one thing that he made it for, to kill Kaigaku, and would be able to decapitate him, with Kaigaku as well saying that it is good that Zenitsu will die with him. That doesn't really happen, as the demon, I don't even remember his name, would be able to catch him and, save his life, giving him an antidote to the poisons. Zenitsu would meet his grandfather in the little area between life and death, and would say a whole bunch of stuff, saying he's sorry that Kaigaku had turned into a demon, and it's all his fault, and that he shouldn't have become shouldn't have learned the thunder breathing. His grandpa would say that he is the most important thing to him in his life, and that'd pretty much be it. back with Tanjiro and Gyu. They'd be running around the area, and the fight with Akaza wouldn't happen because Akaza's dead. There wouldn't be much happening with there as well. With Tanjiro and Gyu, they'd just be rolling around the area and would just be wiping out any demons that they see, as there isn't much to do. With Kano versus Doma, the fight would go very similar, with Doma being an absolute unit versus her, and it would be kind of like a one-sided type of thing. But as we know, Inosuke would come into the fray and would leap down from the ceiling and would battle as well with Kanao versus Doma, and with Doma not being able to fully use, or kind of wouldn't be able to process the poison that was injected into him, would be starting to slow down and die from the poison. Kanao would use the Breath of the Flower's final form, Scarlet Spider Lily Eyes, and be able to fight off against them once and for all, with Doma as his large ditch effort to kill them would use his final demon blood art, but it wouldn't be too much prevail, as he would be decapitated. With everyone else's status, they'd be kind of just be rolling around the area, and Michiro would come across Kokoshibo. Kokoshibo would immediately notice that he is one of his descendants, and would tell him as such, saying that if he wanted to, he can turn into a demon if that guy allows him to do so, as they are running out of members at this point. Michiro wouldn't have any of this, and would steal his nerves and would run towards his ancestor, that being Kokoshibo, and would run around using his not demon blood, keep getting mixed up, his breathing style, and would try to face off against Kokoshibo, but as we already know, that wouldn't be much. He wouldn't be able to really do much, and would be stabbed through his shoulder onto one of the pillars in the area, and would be leapt up into the air. With Genya, he comes into the fray and has to fight off Kokoshibo, but as we know, he just gets his arm chopped off and his body chopped in half on the floor, but he would still be alive due to him devouring demons. With that being said, a new contestant would come into the area, that being Saname. Saname would immediately try to fight off against Kokoshibo, but would be having a very hard time. But something that would happen to the counter to what it is in the original. Both Gyome, Sanami, Genya, and Michiro versus Kokoshibo, there'd be two more contestants in this area, that being Tanjiro as well as Gyu, all coming to face off against the number one demon of the Upper Moon 1, Kokoshibo. The fight would be extremely difficult, as, well, not very difficult, but difficult for Kokoshibo, as he's not able to keep up with everyone, with him being able to, well, he would be able to keep up with everyone but Tanjiro. Tanjiro would immediately see Kokoshibo and see how kind of gross looking he is with the 6 eyes, and Kokoshibo would see Tanjiro, immediately recognizing his brother inside of Tanjiro, seeing the exact same pattern of the demon blood, the demon slayer mark, as well as the form that he uses. Muzan's cells inside of him would start to shudder in fear, but Kokoshibo would stop that. He would immediately tell Tanjiro how he learned the Breath of the Sun, and Tanjiro would say that he worked hard for it. With that being said, Tanjiro would immediately leap towards Kokoshibo, using Sunflower Thrust to thrust his sword towards Kokoshibo, and with the massive amount of speed that he has, will be able to pierce him right into the head, knocking him all the way down to a pillar, destroying the pillar and throwing Kokoshibo even further down the line. The rest of the Hashira, that being Gyome, Sanami, and Michiro, would all run towards Kokoshibo, and the fight would be an absolute slaughterfest. Kokoshibo wouldn't be able to keep up with all 4 of them, as well as Genya being there as well, but Genya is kind of just, a cheerleader at this point, and they'd all be facing off against Kokoshibo. Kokoshibo wouldn't be able to do much and would try to transform into his final demon state, but he wouldn't be able to do much against Tanjiro, as Tanjiro uses the second form, Clear Blue Sky, and would jump into the air and would do a flip attack and would deliver a 360 slash on Kokoshibo's head, slicing his head right off his shoulders. In his final moments, he'd think about his brother and the flute that he had taken off his dead corpse. Kokoshibo is now dead, Doma dead, Akaza dead, Nakame is now dead because of Muzan, as you know, the one demon had taken control of her, and he wasn't able to get proper information off him. The upper four dead, that being Hantengu. Gyoko is dead. Kaigaku is dead, as well as Gyutaro and Daki, both dead. So that's where I'm gonna leave it off, guys. For the final arc, which obviously is the Sunrise Countdown, the final stride against killing Muzan, will be next part. The like goal for this would be 50 likes as per usual, and if you guys did enjoy, please hit that like button as well as the subscribe button, as well as leave a comment down in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys later.